Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Civilization 6, coming at you with an extremely special edition of multiplayer action. I say that a lot. I say this is special, this is special. This is a special one because we are joined by none other than Tordread. You've heard me talk about him before. Now he's here to say hello. Tordread, say hello.
Hello, guys. How you doing?
There's Tordread, and he's going to be teaching me, and not just teaching, but reviewing and discussing and reaffirming and all kinds of different things, ideas about multiplayer strategy at the highest level. Tordread's won many tournaments, both single player and multiplayer. He is widely known as one of the best players on the planet. And I can't believe how lucky I feel to have him offer me the opportunity to get a little coaching in. I'm going to leave some information in the VOD, or in the YouTube video and in the VODs down below, on how you can potentially get some own coaching of yourself if that interests you. There's going to be links to a website that he has going on that will give you information on how you can get coaching sessions of your own. And he's just doing this a little bit of a side gig, and trying to help people get better at their game. Some people even transitioning maybe from single player to multiplayer, much like I did. So you can check out that information down below. Today, in this particular episode, we're going to be taking a look at a Persia 6v6 teamers game I did in CPL a couple days ago. It was a bit of an awkward spawn. A lot of interesting discussion about, strategies that could have been used. I felt like I played pretty good for the most part, but probably made some mistakes. So we're going to just let this roll. We'll talk about it, and if anything really key comes up, we'll have discussions. So with that being said, thank you to Twitch chat for being here. Thank you for being so lovely, and thank you two for joining us. And with that, I think I'm just going to hit the play button and let her go. So a couple things as a precursor that I wanted to say, and I mentioned this to Tordread before I gave him the video earlier. There was a bit of an error in the game when I loaded in. This is actually the second time I loaded into this game. It wouldn't let me move. And as you can see here, I'm struggling to figure out why and how I can't get moved. And finally, I got it figured out that when I loaded the second time, it had auto-ended the turn. So Noob actually pointed out that I needed to do that. And so I ended the turn. I was able to move. But what happened was when I actually loaded into the game the second time, it had actually already registered me to be, I don't think maybe the AI did it or something, but the AI loaded up pottery. And of course, I didn't want to start with pottery. I wanted to start with animal husbandry, but I was kind of frantically going because there was 11 other people in the lobby who wanted to get going, and I'm reloading the game. So I just was like really quickly, okay, let me lock into the right tile. Let me move my warrior and let me hit next turn so that everybody can get going. And then of course, it was 5 turns later before I realized I had done pottery first. So
yeah. The one thing when, obviously in this game, you're just trying to get going, but when you have like a 1/4 deer or like 1/4 ivory, those are usually spots where you want to move to settle on that. Mostly because right now you have a 2-1 base, and you're forced to work 2-2, right? Because otherwise you grow 7 turns.
Yep.
If you move 1 turn to the 1/4, then you're getting an extra 2 production a turn.
So we had this discussion actually before I had to reload. We had the discussion about whether I should settle the 1/4 to get a 2-3 base, and it was actually what I was going to do originally, and I was actually clicking on the 1/4 deer to move over, and it wouldn't let me move, and that's when I had to reload. And by the time we got reloaded, Sandro, who who is also a very good player, he convinced me to settle in place because he was first of all, we could tell it was a 3-tile lake, and so there'd be a freshwater on the other end, and he felt like that combined with staying near the reef fish, the 3-1 works off the 1/4 well. And he also mentioned that probably go Magnus first in an internal Persia gameplay, and so that's 2 chops that I'd be giving up with Magnus. So his argument kind of convinced me to go ahead and do this move and settle in place. But you still would have moved to the 2-3 base?
I think especially when you're trapped in a corner, you're going to have very few spots anyway. Like you could already see there was desert, right? So that,
Hmm.
and where you're moved, you also saw like pretty crap land.
Yeah.
So you want a really good, strong capital if you're going to have a spawn like that
Okay.
that can like start snowballing really fast. Because right now it's more like your basic spawn, right?
Yeah.
You've
Yeah.
got your 2-1 base working at 2-2, but if you're on a 2-3 base working at 2-2, like your entire game is accelerated because by turn 3 you're already making more production than you would have
Yeah.
on that settle for turn 1.
Okay. So you would have taken the 2-3 there, and
Yeah,
then.
I would have risked it, especially knowing like the rest of the land is pretty bad,
Hmm.
um, because a lot of the times in those kinds of situations you're likely going to rush for an encampment in general and want to get like units out quickly.
Yeah.
A city like that can just pump stuff out really fast.
Okay.
And even then, like there's a lot more chops in that kind of city on the 1-4.
Yeah.
Um, like when your scout moves there, like you can see that you from this position, he is right that you can get more cities, but are you going to want to settle like that marsh city up there? Like
Yeah. Yeah. It
that
ended
is
up
a
being
pretty
just.
terrible spot.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It just. I mean, as it turned out, I didn't mind where my cities ended up. Um, but yeah, the 2-3. I end up learning that there's a reef fish in that third lake tile as well, so that ends up
That would have been
being.
like a nice 4 campus there with
Yeah,
like a
I ended
harbor
up putting
there. Like
exactly. I ended up putting the 4 campus in the second city, and putting the campus. I think right there where I was pointing around, I was just discussing districting options for Gov Plaza into campus and commercial hub and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, this is where I'm getting more and more depressed because I'm just seeing nothing but
you
flat.
see
It's just
complete
like
crap. Yeah.
you're just like you see desert and you see flat floodplains. You're like, okay, I'm just gonna move down here and there's gonna be all kinds of hills, and then more floodplains. Okay, and you're just,
It's like,
you're against the coast. You're pretty sure it's like literally coast around you. And then this is where actually Sandro, because this is where I was doing a little bitching, right? Like I was just like,
yeah.
guys, this is not good. And then this is where Sandro's like, he literally his words is like, I see like 4 or 5 OP cities you've got right now, man. Like, and Sandro just
Yeah.
like just wired, right? And I'm like, dude, pin me 4 good cities that you see right now. Are you absolutely out of your mind? And then he starts. This is where he starts pinning. So he pins the freaking floodplain city up there. I'm like, how is that a good city? I got to work the 1-3 crab on pop 3. Like what is this? And then he had pinned something over on the side here. Um, and so anyway, yeah, like obviously Gabaston was a nice find to help give me some life, but I'm learning more and more that I just have absolutely no space, more crappy marsh and flat tiles and all that kind of stuff, and yeah, it was pretty ugly stuff. But yeah, you're right. Like I mean, like even this settler, right? If I'm 2-3 base working a 2-2, the settler's faster as well.
Mm-hmm. A little
Um,
bit of extra tempo to like be like my start is like total crap, but at least my capital can like really produce stuff fast, so
mhm,
I can get crap cities out quickly. Like,
yeah. But I think
um,
at this point I switched into the 3-1 and the 1-4, so it
yeah,
wasn't
that is
too
definitely
bad.
the right choice. You want to really like. I hear a lot of people say this, but it's just good to reiterate that you want to get like that 2 food average
Yeah,
kind of thing, so that you're growing. Because otherwise, it's just at like a half pace that
yeah,
really hurts. Um, there are some pretty like niche situations where you want to like prioritize production, especially if it's like between like 2-2s and 1-4s,
yeah,
just because that gets you that like little extra. Especially, and I saw you do this when you got to like that 1 food away, you switched to the 1-4, which is really good.
yeah, yeah. Just checking on like, okay, I'm going to grow next turn anyway. Will I be able to speed whatever you're doing up by a turn and still get the 1 turn growth or whatever? Or like if you've got like 2 turns on a settler and you're like, let me just see if I focus all the production if I can pop it in one kind of thing. So at this point, I was starting to think, okay, where my scout is where I was thinking I would settle my next city. Um, but this is where pretty soon is where Rome shows up and starts pressuring me, and I didn't want to be the reason. This is another thing in teamers. I never want to be the reason that we declare war. And so I'm like, at this point, there comes a point here where I don't want them. I don't want to be the one to declare war, but I was afraid he was going to step on the marsh behind me and like walk through me and step on the marsh behind me and block my settle. I think it's not quite yet because I get my first settler out. So this is another good discussion. Where would, knowing what you see now, where would you take this first settler? Where would you be walking?
Probably to the cotton, I think.
Okay,
On that
that's
floodplains.
that's where I go. That's where I ended up going. Yeah. Because that's another thing. Sandro was teasing the crap out of me. Why would you settle that piece of shit Cotton City? I'm like, well, first of all, it's nice to get a luxury online, so you're instantly happy in your cities. And then I said, 3 gold base is a nice little boost because I'm going to need, money to start buying stuff to accelerate this. And then at the time, I was like, plus floodplain Pantheon. Got 2 really big floodplains. I could potentially do floodplains Pantheon. And so that was kind of my initial thought. And then he was just like, why would you settle that city? You could have sold this, this, and this. And again, he's pinning all these cities that he would settle.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really agree with like his thing, like his train of thought. Mm-hmm. I mean, the biggest upsides I see to that Cotton City are, first, it's a 3-turn settle. Mm-hmm. So even though it's a crap city, you're getting it online quickly.
Yep.
It's got access to like wheat and like a couple, like it's like 2 food, 1 production, and then 1 food, 2 production tiles as like a mix. Mm-hmm. So like you can sort of make that work. It's not going to be nice, but
yeah. And it turned out there was a horse there as well, so the horse was a nice start. And
yeah, that is nice.
And then there's a volcano there, of course, which could give you some better strength. I thought it was the best start. And that's another thing that Fish, I've learned a lot early on watching Fish, is he always counts out the number of turns to settle on his first couple settlers, because the speed with which you get it down, the tempo, getting like settling on turn 3, like the 3rd turn after, versus settling on the 5th turn or the 6th turn, because you had to walk over hill after river after forest after hill, and then like up on a hill, and then you settle like 7 turns later, unless it's like a crazy amazing wonder settle or something like that. Generally speaking, it's like settle in 3, get the monument going, even if it's just 1 good tile to work.
Like definitely between, like, because I'm guessing he, like, Sandro would want you to settle in that like lake spot. And
well, that was kind of what he said. He's like, I would have settled the lake, and then I would have went down and settled Gobeston, and I wouldn't have settled the cotton until later. I'm like, you really would have waited that long to settle a cotton with a horse on it? Like,
yeah, I think the thing is that, like, first you're getting the amenities, so you're not going to be negative because you're already losing like food and production and culture and all that stuff when you do that. And then second, it's much faster, so you're going to get that city down 2 turns earlier, instead of 3 turns instead of 5 turns. So you're already getting free production out of that.
Yep.
And I mean, it's like going outward. Like the lake settle is sort of more inward. You can pretty much always settle that. It's not even that great a city. None of your cities are that good, but if you're on this kind of a situation, you're probably going to want to be aggressive because, right, if you can't win with your spawn, you want to like push outwards, and try to get people when like the parity between you two is not as great, right? So like some guy, like if you have this spawn, like over time in your sim, there's like no way you can win just by just simming.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's just like you're just assuming the other person is a similar skill level. You are simply just going to be slow. It's just like you're gonna get your cities a little slower, and they're gonna just have tempo that it's gonna be hard to compete with. So some other discussion. Sandro was discussing about going builder first right out of the gate and going fishing. Would you have gone? That was a discussion that he suggested. I didn't really like it that much. Would you have considered going builder first and getting the reef fish up, like instead of going like animal husbandry into something?
I don't know. I mean, it's only 1 that's like the problem, right? If it was like maybe it's like a reef fish and then like I don't know, like a normal fish or something, and then it works out because you have a lot of 1/3s as well. So like, but just 1, I don't really like it, especially because sailing is like on the tier of the text, right? There's like those first ones like animal husbandry and mining and stuff. Those are really cheap, and then sailing is like the sort of tier above that.
Yeah. So it takes it's even more time. So it's like 7 turns on that before you even get to animal husbandry, and you don't have
So
the
by
horse up or
yeah,
whatever.
so by doing that, you sort of like sacrifice any hope of you ever getting like a super good like early rush.
Mm-hmm. Because my thought was is that I was right here when I went to a second settler. I was considering a builder because I could have hit the two cattle and then the horse. Yeah, the two sheep, sorry, and then the horse. So would you have considered going settler builder settler in the capital instead?
I think this is one of those this is definitely I think one of these times where you really have to like you have such limited resources, and I think like in a teamer setting, buying a builder is pretty necessary because you have 3 pastures right now,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's like 3 extra production easily, and that'll really boost your tempo. Like the one tile in that city that's in Bakhtri that's really good to work, you can actually get that improved.
Exactly. Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
even in this situation, I think it might be worth it to do craftsman first. Maybe try to get like some early like military pressure and keep going down because you can see that the land below that like first city you have is actually not too bad. It's
Mm-hmm.
at least better than what you're seeing in other spots.
Yeah,
But
and this is where like I was considering floodplain pantheon until I noticed how close Rome ended up being, and I was nervous with the amount of like I'm like if he has a good spawn and this is what I've got, like I was just so nervous. Like I was playing really anxious at this point. Um, Certainly I would have loved to have bought a builder. In fact, it was actually around this time where I said, "Is there any chance we could buy me a builder to get these 3 pastures done?" And it was kind of met with deaf ears as random toxic teamers tend to be, because everybody's asking for gold. And so this is like, okay, well, I can have a builder in 4 turns myself. And then I think it's in 2 turns, Golden asks me for gold to buy a I can't
Kree
remember.
Scout probably.
It might have been a Kree Scout or a District Tower or something. I can't remember. And I'm like, I was saving up for a builder because you guys won't buy me one, and I've got 3 tiles I can improve, and this spawn is shit. Can I please keep my money? And then it's like everyone's just like, oh no, he needs this or whatever. And I was like, okay, fine, take my fucking gold. Like, it just gets so frustrating sometimes playing with random people. Like, it's just
I mean, everyone like all 6 people pretty much like want to like use the money in one way, which is in like their own way. Like they're looking at their game right now, right?
yeah,
So, like obviously to them, like get it. Pretty much to anyone, getting something bought is going to be a huge boost. But
yeah,
there's like some situations, like I think in this one, where it's pretty clear that it would give you a noticeable benefit.
yeah.
Like,
Like if I'd have bought a builder like this turn or the turn before, like even right around when I bought my settler, if I just said, everybody give me your gold, it's 100 gold. It's the only time I'll ask for gold, but just give this to me and I can actually get something done. Right? Like I can really accelerate fast here if you would just buy me this builder. And I just I never got that love. And if I was playing maybe in a 4v4 with with Zoc guys, or like in a game where it was a little bit more competitive and people were like making intelligent decisions on a team basis instead of, I want to make sure that I'm not the one who dies, so let me give me the gold so that I can be the one who does well in this game with of randoms and stuff like that. Tends to be the thought process. So this is right here where he asked me for gold on this. I'm just like, I kind of wanted to buy a builder, but I guess I'll give my gold away instead, because it just, and that's the other thing is I'm terrible asking for gold, and then I didn't get it when I asked, and then it's being asked for me, and this is where I get really frustrated at everything that's happening. This is the point where I'm just like, oh, I was just so beyond.
I mean, one of the things that like I think sort of in your control that you could work on. So like, obviously like the Plowry thing is just like a mistake, right? But if after that you go for like animal husbandry and then just like straight uh, uh, encampment kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the play here, especially once you know that your land is just complete garbage and you have nowhere to go because right, you're like getting a city out that is like total crap doesn't really add a lot to your empire,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe like getting out a couple districts that are going to allow you to be more aggressive, especially on Persia, where you have that ability to do that.
Yeah.
It's something you could look at.
Yeah. So this is where things take a transition. So it's at this point where I don't want him to walk through me. I almost was like, can we please declare war so he can't walk through me? But I wasn't sure if it was the right call. But I was like, if he walks through me and stands in that marsh, and then they declare war, then my next settle's screwed. So I stepped on the marsh and said, the worst case scenario, I settle the marsh, right? And that's kind of where my thought process was. Would you have just said declare war kind of thing, or
I declare war over like the tiniest things. If
okay?
like I can make someone waste like another turn getting to me with a scout, I'll declare a war.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah,
pretty much like the boost is not really too big a deal. I mean,
yeah,
it does help a ton, but if you've got like one guy with like a lot of culture, it's
yeah.
basically
He's
gets
gonna
paid
hard take
back.
it for you anyway.
He's gonna hard tech it anyway. I mean,
Yeah,
it saves him a little bit of time, like probably like 1 or 2 turns on his culture tree, but that that's really not a big deal, especially if you can get some kind of noticeable positional edge, or like even just like moving your scout over and then like trying to block and then saying like, oh, okay, like I'll declare war. They get a little bit nervous that like you're moving towards them. They back off
yeah,
because it's always better to be the person that's at their borders with units
yeah,
and they're trying to respond than the person trying to respond, because in like the early game it's really hard to kill things
yeah,
like completely. Like they just kind of like
yeah. There's not
hit
really any
you.
strong units. Yeah,
Exactly.
there's promos real quick. So anyway, the builder dream goes out the window because, and so you can see there. Actually, let me just back this up. Can I back that up? Like, not even that far, but close. So the builder dream goes out the window when I see the warrior, and I decide to buy a slinger because I'm like, okay, I'm gonna make the builder myself when the settler's finished, which you can see I'm doing now. And so I'm like, I'll buy a slinger so I can protect my area and protect my tiles. So the slinger purchase to protect the builder ended up being the choice. So what happened was, is before I knew where Rome was, I had gone, obviously I screwed up and um, I went pottery by accident because of the issue we already discussed. So I ended up I went into animal husbandry, and then I was like, when I didn't know that they were close, I'm like, you know, Persia would love to get commercials up, right? That's in your head. Like if I happen to be in good space, so I clicked on writing to give me an option for commercial hub, and normally I would have had mining and animal husbandry done, and then I would have been working on pottery, and then I could have doubled back. But as soon as I saw how close Rome was, I switched off pottery, and you can see here I've clicked all the way to bronze working, and it's encampment o'clock. So that's, other than the pottery mistake. Would you have changed anything else there? Like, would you have gone encampment like straight to bronze working based on the spawn, or just based on the neighbor?
I mean, I think the first one I would have done, well, I would have moved to the deer, right? And then
Okay.
still would have probably gone animal.
Okay.
Just because animal is like pretty much good everywhere, right? You
Yeah.
see horses, you can get pastures, which is a great early improvement.
Yeah.
And then you sort of like go from there. Like one thing you did do is you did go pottery, and then you like worked like almost up to finishing writing,
Yeah. Exactly.
and then you kind of moved off.
That was exactly, that was kind of the mistake. Is I was like, okay, I screwed up because as you saw at the beginning, I just auto loaded it in. By the way, Dominar, good to see you, buddy. I'll catch up with chat in 2 seconds. So I ended up going into my thought was, before I knew Rome was there, is like, if I can get some really good commercial hubs up, it's such great tempo, obviously, as Persia. So I'm like, let's just hope that we're good, and I don't have mining yet, so let me just go get writing into commercial hubs, and maybe I can get away with this. Found where they were. That's when I switched off, and so it kind of ended up. It cost me a few turns on bronze working, but it didn't hurt me. But yeah, I maybe could have gone animal husbandry straight into bronze working and 86 the commercial hub early idea. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, this is like I think if you do head towards like writing, I don't even think it's that bad of an idea to get like that campus down quickly,
mm-hmm.
right? Because it's a 4. So then you build 2 settlers, right? You get your campus down, you get like a granary or something, you try to get to 4 pop. Then by the time you hit bronze working, you have campus down, you get your encampment down, and then like that's your like 4 pop setup in your cap. And maybe like in this situation, like it looked to me at least doesn't look like Gov Plaza has any like really good spot. So you could kind of just like throw it down wherever.
Okay.
chop out like the warlord's throne.
Okay, so I
Uh,
ended up going audience.
okay.
I don't. This is an interesting discussion. Um, I don't like Warlord's Throne at all. I think audience is so strong. But that being said, with this crap of land, audience doesn't give you a lot because I mean it gives you high population, but it's just going to give me high population to work more average tiles or below average tiles. So there's an argument to be said about not going audience even for the extra amenities in
Mhm.
order to because you're going to be just having more population. I don't know. You would have gone warlords here.
I think like at least your capital, right? You can get it has like the food tiles like from those two reef fishes. You could probably get into it, um, like granary, whatever. I think that's like enough
Yeah,
um, food, and also like when you hit stirrups, you get like the two food from those, like the three food, three production sheep or whatever.
yeah,
So it has enough food to like be a good city, and it has like good production in it. And like your other cities, it doesn't seem like food is like the limiting factor. It's like just sort of crap production.
yeah,
I think Warlord's Throne really solves that issue because throughout the game now, like you can just continue to pump out units. And because you're in such a tight position, you're going to need to do that
mm-hmm.
a lot to sort of break through. And that's like, and so the guy that like builds audience chamber against you in that situation,
Yeah,
he's paying like that extra one upkeep on his units. He has to like waste a bunch of extra production against you,
yeah.
um, right? So like you always have 20% extra production if like both of you are sort of like stuck in a
In a
like
war.
building units nonstop kind of situation,
Yeah.
which is why that's like
It ended
it.
up being a bit of a cold war, actually. He wanted to sim, and I obviously didn't. With my land, didn't really want to fight all that much, and we ended up simming, and I ended up out simming him in the end a little bit. Um, just want to get caught up on chat real quick. Golden is actually the one who asked for the goal a minute ago in the game. He was playing Kree. He had a God Spawn, off the charts, free sim Kree game. Torres' second city, and he was on a giant peninsula of his own land, and he had Scythia as the only neighbor, and that was Sandro on our team. So he was literally like having the time of his life, and he stole that money from me. Damn it, he's in chat for a 2/4 Torres tile. I still feel like the builder was the better buy for the team instead of the free sim guy getting a 2/4. I'm just gonna go there. Dominar, thanks for being here. Pottery first was not my fault. Don't blame me. Yeah, maybe Warlords was the play. I fall in love with the amenities of um of audience as well. I pretty much, even in a war situation, I always end up going audience. But
I
maybe
think it's
it's
also just sort of your like finicky words like simming rather than war, right?
yeah.
Like
I'm much more yeah exactly. I am much more towards if I could just stay alive and sim. I think I can out sim my neighbor. Like that's kind of in my head, right? Like I'm really good at that part, but like figuring out the war maneuverings of like getting a general and getting the units and positioning units and going and fighting and replenishing units, and when I start fighting I'm like constantly worried about losing units instead of like committing to taking down units and getting good trades, and my brain sucks because I hate losing stuff, so it kind of hurts me a lot. um so yeah, I don't know, maybe Warlord Storm was the way. um but anyway, we'll kind of continue rolling forward. Thank you everyone for being here. So yeah, this is where I end up worrying. I could worry back and forth about trying to. I should have declared war. I should have just declared war so that he couldn't get through me. But as it turned out, I actually liked this settle. The one biggest reason why I didn't like a second city on the coast was that we didn't know at this point where Indonesia was, and Indonesia was being played by Civ Rider. I'm like, if Indonesia's down my coast, I'm gonna die. On this marsh. You can see I just moved myself back again to cover that marsh tile because worst case scenario, right? I kind of wanted to settle off the water, but then Waza was like, "Don't worry, I'm gonna come and protect your coast. If you need to settle it, just settle it." I'm like, okay, so I'm just gonna settle this marsh at this point if he doesn't back off, because he can't get through me where I'm standing, right? So I can always have the marsh. Um, so yeah, then he's coming. Now here's another situation where I always worry about the exchange, and I don't want to lose this slinger because I got the builder coming out. I was considering at this point going right to pressure the slinger to get him off me so I could move out. But I was worried if I went right and his warrior blocks me from getting back to the city, then then because if his warrior gets me, then it's warrior and slinger on, or warrior and scout on slinger. The slinger might die trapped at that lake, right? So I end up moving the slinger back to the sheep to protect. But I kind of get nervous sometimes about unit exchange and whether or not I can get promotions and if I die.
Yeah, I mean, it can definitely sort of be kind of scary. He could have definitely. I think if you moved to that 1-3, I think it could have definitely died.
Yeah.
Um,
I was considering hitting him here, but even here, like if I hit him with the slinger and I'm on a hill and he's on flat land, like it might be a good exchange for me. Like maybe I hit him and he hits me, and then I can maybe get a promo soon or whatever. Fortify and let him hit me twice into a promo or something like that.
One thing you could do though is like with that scout that's sort of up there at the top. You can see right now he has 30 military strength, which so you can only
I
have.
could have looked at that. Yeah.
Yeah, so you know that's his only 2 units. So when a guy has you have like the double XP promotion for scouts. So if you hit his scout twice and you initiate the attack, you'll level up.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll need a lot more XP than that
because he's already leveled once, right?
Yeah, so he'll have to back off as a result.
Yeah, I could have done that. Yeah.
So you can be kind of like aggressive with that,
especially as Persia with my +3 on attack,
yes.
Right?
Yeah, so you do have an advantage in that aspect.
I could have probably stayed my slinger on the hill because I was bringing my warrior back, but my thought was I don't want him like shift entering around me, because he could have, like, if I'd have stayed there and he like last second to the maze and shift entered on the cattle, then my builder can't come and do the things that I want to do there.
He has to declare war first too, right?
Yeah, I guess
he can't do that. So like if you just fortify, I think you're still fine
probably
on that hill.
The better play.
Also, just like allows you a little bit more coverage with that slinger. The slingers are never really that great. I think it's always like if you don't have archers coming out pretty quickly, it's good to get like a warrior instead. It's a little extra money, but
yeah,
I think it usually is good unless like it's just about like getting like the initial tiles away and there's no chance that they'll kill it.
Yeah.
As you've like seen, it's like it can be kind of scary if yeah. you get into that position where it's like, okay, well the slinger's like it could die very easily.
Yeah. I end up going double slinger here. And this is probably a situation, or into a second slinger, I should say. This is a situation where I could have learned from what you just said there about checking his military strength. I mean, like, he's got 30 military strength. I don't need another slinger here. I've got plenty here to handle what's going on. But it was a little bit of panic and a little bit of like I'm right up against the coast. Like the only way I could settle is directly towards him. Like I was just really freaking out. So I'm like, I'm gonna get another slinger, and I can upgrade him into archers, and I'm gonna get my encampment down now because I want to push him away so I can go settle Gaveston. Right? Like my thought is I need to go settle Gaveston quickly. Like it needs to be my fourth city. I need to go do it quick. And so that's kind of where my thought process is. Let me get another unit and let me really convincingly push him away. And I end up doing it, but I maybe could have done it for cheaper.
I don't even know if Gobestan is like something you need to like really prioritize because the land around it is all total crap. And I think like if you were into the mindset of wanting to, like pressure and like have sort of more of a impact, as well, especially on like a civ that has a combat bonus like Persia, you just want to like keep going further south of Bakhtri, and then you can make like sort of a more defensive settle where you put all your military, because right now where you're like all your settlements are, right, he can kind of hit you at all angles. But if you have one that's city that's like clearly the front city, you can like sort of centralize your military there.
Yeah.
Then you can have like a lot more simming going on more safely in the back. Right? Because that way it's like if he goes around you, then he has like the possibility of being flanked by a bunch of units that you have in that front city,
Yeah.
and then like the possibility of just being completely wiped out is very real.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it was a tricky spot. And this another situation where I'm working the 3-1 fish, and then I think I'd buy the 1-3 that ends up being the campus, so I'd have two good tiles, so I'd grow quickly and then have 3-1 and a 1-3 works okay in that city in Tushpa.
yeah.
And then I think he starts to slowly move away here anyway. I've got I don't know. Golden, regarding the builder buy, I think you should be more aggressive in asking for money from teammates. I asked from you because you had the most gold, but alternatively, you could have asked for 30 gold from other teammates and gotten the builder and rejected my deal. I'm on the other side of the map, paying full attention. Yeah, you're probably. I think I'm totally not anywhere nearly aggressive enough. I wanted to ask you about this interaction here as well. I'm not nearly aggressive enough in asking for gold, and I tend to be very just team first oriented and just let things go. And I should have just said, no, I'm buying a builder. Give me my gold. Like,
Give me my money.
give me my gold. Because I'm like literally the antithesis of Jack. Okay, Jack is like instantly give me gold, let me have the stuff, and I'm like the opposite of that, and I need to get out of that habit a little bit. So here, I was in the city and he stepped there. I went and got a quick hit, knowing that I'm Persia, I get the +3, but I didn't want to stand on the floodplains and get hit back because it kind of negates my advantage, right? But I was going for a double hit there. I could have gone for a double hit, but my slinger was a turn late getting there for the triple hit. It was kind of my thought.
Well, the thing is, he doesn't have any chance to kill you, right? If like your first idea is like, I'll fortify, see what he does. If he hits you, then it's like fortified on floodplain sort of cancels each other out, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he's already more weakened than you, so he'll lose the exchange. So I think in most situations he's probably going to back off anyway.
Yeah,
so you
which he ends
do
up doing. Yeah, I could have gotten a second hit for the extra XP there. That was a bit of a mistake, I think. Just a small
just like the
exchange,
XP, but like he would be weakened enough where like that unit can't like pressure you in the next like 10 turns or so.
Yeah.
He'd have to go back and heal clearly.
Mm-hmm.
And then that also like opens up like the possibility of like if you had moved that settler from Tushpa down to like Bakhtri or something, then you could like keep moving it down.
Yeah.
So it just like opens up a couple more options for you.
Mm-hmm. For sure. So you said that like Galveston, you're not a big proponent of, I guess, rushing it. My thought was it's definitely my next best settle, and it's non-fresh, which isn't ideal, obviously, but like 4 production, 4 culture is a nice boost. I get a quick monument work in the 4 production, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like instantly like I can place a city and get 6 culture and get some tempo and start to feel like I got some momentum. So
I think like if you are gonna do that, then I think that's where Tushpa needs to go.
Okay. Go ahead. No, keep going.
Yeah.
I was just closing
I
the door.
I just wanted to make sure you were here.
Yeah, no, because the dog. I had the headphones on, but the dog's insane right now. So you would have pushed and gotten city number 3 there.
Yeah, and I think then like if you didn't buy the builder before, I think like maybe getting like a trader or something, maybe buying a trader once you get that city down there, because it's gonna have, if you're working that 4 food or that 4 production 4 culture, you're gonna want like a trader back to
for food,
give you that extra food. So that's sort of like my thought process on that. Because the culture later on, it's not as impactful. Right? Like once you get that sort of like core, like 20 culture or something, like from getting like monuments, moksha, whatever, like your own internal trader out bonus.
Yeah.
And getting like an extra 4 culture really doesn't mean much. But if you're getting it like early enough where it's like, oh, I'm getting like, I don't know, my government maybe like 3 or 4 turns earlier or something like that. Like that could really mean something.
So yeah, so getting it as a 3rd city is a hell of a lot more impactful than getting it as a 4th city. Is basically what you're saying.
Yeah, and I think it would have been maybe like 1 or so turns, like slower than the Tushpa city.
Yeah,
and
it wouldn't have been too bad because it was flat land on the way after you get to the wheat and jade and that.
Yeah, and that's like Tushpa's actually like fine as a city.
Yeah,
it definitely makes a lot of sense to settle that, and but you could also make it like a lot better with builders as well. But the Gobostan city doesn't really require anything, right? Besides a trader back.
Yeah.
Like it's just kind of like, hey, this is like free yields. Like this is
Mm-hmm.
like free like 12 culture I can possibly get if I have the
Yeah,
food.
it's kind of what the city turned into. Is like, eventually I went cult. I maybe as a forest city I should have gone granary first. Um, but I ended up going monument first. Granary probably was the call. I don't know. I don't know.
Patron is good too in this. I like city patron. That's like
I
one of my
like I
favorites.
like it a lot, especially on Persia. But yeah, no, I've used it a lot. It's so nice having. It's weird because in base game it's just garbage, right? It's like
So good.
it's just so bad. It's like, what is the point? But like making it like 50% production is like especially early, like, oh, 5 turn campus, let's make it 3, right? Like just real quick, or or whatever. Same with commercial hub, same kind of thing. Are you gonna settle down? Huh? Get in here. Come in. Get in there.
A funny tangent though on that, like, is that one of my favorites is to do it on is actually Inca, because City Patron has like a really interesting mechanic where it's not just like the first district you put down. It's while you don't have a district in the city,
Mm-hmm.
you get 50% production towards district. So Inca, you get a lot of extra growth, and then you can be like, hey, I'll do it from both my first district and my second district. Like I'll get a campus down, like maybe even a commercial, and you set them at 1 turn, and then with extra
Oh.
terrace farm food.
Oh, really? So
Yeah,
like it's not just like once you like, so if I place my campus, it's not like, okay, when you build this campus, I'll give you 50% production, but
towards
any
that
other.
campus. It's once you complete it,
Oh.
then you don't get that bonus anymore.
So if you get a city down and it's going to get some quick pop, you could like place the campus in the commercial hub, let's say, or whatever, and then like get one to like 1 turn, and then get the other one up to 1 turn.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow, I did not even know that. Until there's a district complete. I always just kind of assumed in my head that it was the very first district. I end up screwing up here because I end up placing my Gov Plaza, and of course the Gov Plaza is super cheap. I actually made a mistake here. The reason I did it is because, again, the antithesis of Jack, I am the opposite of a chop waster, and the campus obviously goes where the tree is, and I just refused to just place it down on top of the tree. I'm like, I'm gonna get a builder charge here, and I'm gonna chop it out. The math to me doesn't add up to making it worth. Um,
I think if you go with that logic, though, that you need to like
you need,
prioritize getting the builder right,
yeah,
because it's probably just going to pay off its like production anyway.
yeah,
Because every
exactly,
time
because
you
it
get,
goes up with the tech. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, that's the main thing. Like if you're going to wait long enough that the chop is essentially wasted,
mm-hmm.
right? Anyway, then
Yeah,
you might as well just put it down quickly.
I know.
But if you can get like that builder like set up so that it's like, oh, I hit like writing and then I get the builder up and then like mining right after, chop it, get that quick campus. Because I think this campus here would have like sped you up significantly,
yeah.
right? Like
I
it would
should
have
have just.
doubled your output.
And that's the thing, is I got almost to ready. Maybe I should have just finished it. But this is where I get my encampment down, right? Like I go in Boktree there. I just place my encampment. Um, I like the idea when I'm this close, and it's the same thing I did in my Persia game against Chill. Dominar knows that one well because he was my neighbor in that one on that Inland Sea game, and that's the game where I killed everybody with tanks. I like to remind. Uh, so my thought is that I like the intimidation factor of getting an encampment down quick, um, against your neighbor, right? Like he didn't end up getting one himself, but I like, it's like if he sees me getting general points, it's like, oh shit, like, maybe I produce some units, or I'm not going to go mess with him. I push him. He's got an encampment. He chops out a project. I'm pushing a general, right? Like in my head, that's kind of what I feel like it's a nice idea to do that. But this is a situation where I could have maybe taken advantage and gotten the commercial hub. I think I ended up putting the commercial hub on the maze here. I could have waited till pop 4, got the commercial hub down, and taken advantage of what you're talking about with City Patron. I like that a lot. I'm glad you told me that. That's some key
It's
information.
one of those like weird, like
Mechanics.
archaic things, yeah. So
That is really sweet. settler. So as we're here, I'm checking the settler production and how if I need the card, and it turns out I do. So here, this is a good example here. So, and I need to try and do the math more on this kind of stuff. So I'm changing out my policy cards. Let me get back here far enough. I have a policy change here, and this my settler goes down to 1 turn, and I'm checking the production in the city and how much production I have on my settler to see if I can still 1 turn it without the settler card on. It turns out I can't, but it's 3 turns on my next on my next policy. So I go state work first 3 turns, so I need to keep the settler card in for 3 turns in order to 1 turn the settler versus 2 turn it. But then it's like, well, I could have had 1 production in my other 2 cities. Maybe I got a faster builder and a faster monument. But that's a lot of math to do when you're, I guess, the turn.
It's like about even. I mean, it doesn't really matter that much, I think.
Yeah.
Like in this specific situation, if you just do like some quick math, it's either like 9 production or something versus like, I don't know what your caps production is, but it kind of looks like maybe like something like 13 or something. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was 12, I think.
Yeah, so like I think it probably pays out to actually do the 1 production.
Yeah. The total production across the board, I'm sure, is better. But if I do, it delays my settler by a turn.
1 turn, yeah. It's just sort of like, do you want to have that like faster expand by like 1 turn, or do you want to have like, a little bit better like sort of infrastructure? And
I think I should have taken colonization out there, because this is where I'm deciding. You can see me. I'm like, do I put it in? Do I put it in? I'm not going to get the. It's going to be a 2-turn settler. What do I do?
I think usually I'm like on the idea that you kind of want all your cities, especially your early ones, to getting that sort of infrastructure up, especially during this point in the game where it's like the guy can't really pressure me, like, and I think getting like a settler 1 turn slower is fine. I think if Bakhtri was maybe building a settler as well or something,
yeah, for sure.
Maybe like that would be like a really, because that's actually something I do quite a lot in my games, is during that time, like when you get that settler card and then you want to be like building a bunch of settlers, that I'm like, okay, I'm just like popping out settlers.
Exactly. Like, in a normal setup here, in a normal setup where I'm not being pressured, I'm 100% building 2 settlers here. But I'm stuck for money a little bit. I want to get another builder out. I got the iron to get up. I need to do a chop in the capital. The warrior's probably a mistake here. I'm panicking over Rome's 32 military strength.
Yeah, because I think like you're not really being pressured in this situation.
Yeah, like, it's just total panic job
like that.
Yeah. Like I got 2 warriors and a slinger. Why am I building another warrior here? It's such a mistake.
Yeah. Like, you kind of want to keep that sort of like ancient level, like military production down like pretty significantly low. I think pretty much the thing I build most is like archers, because they scale like really well, right? Like you always need at least a few of them, so it works out. But like sort of your melee units, it's less like I need a lot of these melee units. It's like if I'm gonna push, maybe, but.
I think my war moves suck here as well. I should have last moved my 2 slingers to the I screwed this up. I should have last moved my slingers to that scout, and I might have gotten a warrior into 2 slingers and a scout hit into 2 slingers and a scout hit might have killed him if I'd have last moved first move there.
I think the play would be like moving the warrior up onto the forest, scout to the plains on the other side, and then onto the stone. That way you have him completely zona controlled.
I think the reason why I kept him there is I ended up going archers was my train of thought there. So
yeah, I mean that works out too, because then next turn if he doesn't like respect it, you can actually still just move in and kill him, because 1 archer shot plus like a scout is going to put him in like critical range. And
what I should have done here, I was trying to protect my encampment, but I think I could move over. I think I might
move over, because like, so the logic behind it is that like, okay, he steps on my encampment, then he like, I can't do it, but that only like counts if like you can't actually kill the unit.
That's exactly the last thing he's going to do is step back with his warrior, step on that encampment so I can 1-turn him.
Yeah, just so you can kill his unit, then say, "Oh wow, thanks for wasting your time, killing the unit yourself."
Yeah, that was a mistake as well. Shoot, good to see you, by the way, Moondoggy. Yeah. So there's this bit of a slow journey here with the settler. So it's weird. Like I think part of it's the lack of experience, but I get a little bit angsty in the early game because like especially in a situation like this where I've got like coast and desert and floodplains and Rome's my neighbor, right? And then it's like really squeezed in. I start to get to a point where I'm feeling comfortable. Like I start to realize, okay, he's got no military. He's not pushing me. He's got 4 or 5 cities of his own. I need to get going. So I end up pushing into some more settlers and, start progressing towards getting my own game going. But there's definitely already in our discussion, I gotta love it when you've got a production starved city and the river floods and it gives you 4 more food. It feels so good, right? Like I take the 4 food and just give me 2 production. I mean, just yeah.
Like, how good would have a floodplains Pantheon been, though? Like,
I know.
Actually, it would have been like so nice there.
I know. The thing is that at this point, the reason I didn't take it is because I had decided I probably wasn't going to settle on the floodplain city south based on where he was, because I felt like that city could have gotten surrounded pretty easily if he'd have he didn't end up settling to his right that much, but I was nervous about settling that city, and I felt like my best idea was to take these 4 cities and take that city state Buenos Aires, wherever it was to my left, and kind of make a 7-city setup with more cities to my left as opposed to going further south. Maybe, like you were talking earlier, maybe getting a bit more aggressive settling south, especially with the military size I had. I should have been looking, like, it just, when I get frantic early, when the turns are so fast, I could have easily said, I've got 92 military strength, he's got 34. I could easily pump out 2 more settlers, settle this river to my south, and he's nothing he can do about it. Right?
Yeah, like, especially, I think also after you get that, like, after you get bronze working, you should just go like iron working, and then just go like get a couple immortals out, get sort of like control over the area, start like putting those immortal onto his border, because then he right now he's just like free simming, right? Like he doesn't care whatever you're doing. But if you put units on his border, then he has to immediately be like, okay, I got to start building units now. And now he's like sort of on the back foot, so like everything's going to start going to there. You don't even have to attack him. You could just be like, okay, here's some units, they're just going to be annoying. You can't expand out. You can't like build like improvements like safely, like especially if you get a general on him too. Like it's the land to attack him is not great, right? Like that's pretty obvious. Like once you get to this point, so I think like rushing a general like doesn't make.
Yeah, I put the encampment down, and that maybe was even a panic move.
I don't even think that's a panic move. I think that makes sense.
It was a logical thing to do either way. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you were going to do that regard. Like in these situations where you're like stuck against the side, like you have to go encampment. There's pretty much like no option, and like I think still the biggest thing is like you don't have the campus there at this point. Like it's like
I know. I should have had it done. I should have had it down.
Yeah.
In my brain, I'm thinking, okay, I got the builder on the way. I'll chop it in 3 or 4 turns or whatever. And I think at that point, I'm like, Magnus is in the city. I'm about to finish the Gov Plaza. And my thought process, I think, was I'll use that chop to chop out audience and then place the campus.
It's like, especially with like a build, like if you're going Magnus, right? Anyway,
builders are so much more priority.
Yeah, because you get a builder, you chop out like 1 tile, you could have like another builder, you could instantly get that Gov Plaza that you're building.
Yeah,
you could set up the tile for the campus. Like works out to like getting you a lot more tempo if like that's the start you're going for. I usually don't go for Magnus starts. I like to go for like the Moksha start to get that culture train going.
Yeah, I think that was another mistake. I ended up going Moksha here now, but I think when you're going Magnus, it's probably like Magnus Cap. I think it's. Oh, actually, I ended up going Science. Why did I go Science? Oh, because I was about to get Govaston. I think was the reason why I decided. I was like, my culture's about to take a spike when I get Govaston. I think that was my thought process, but maybe a mistake. But no, generally speaking, when I'm going Magnus Cap, I generally go Moksha in my first expand, especially with all this food. And I ended up going Pingala there. Maybe that was a bit of I need Science with the Rome neighbor. I don't know.
I think it like makes sense that you want to get some science up, but um, I don't know. I'm trying to think about it a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but I still like culture a lot because you
Yeah.
get that earlier alliances, like you can sort of like get on at the same time, and there's less ways to get culture, in my opinion,
No,
than
you're right. You're right. Especially when
science. Especially with
I'm
Japan.
sitting on 2+4 campuses that I can get down here in the next few turns. That was Pingala was a mistake there, I think. Falcons, good to see you, buddy. Keck W. Co-coaching coming. Yeah, I think no, I think it was probably it should have been the governors here. I mean, there's lots of different ways to play it, but I think it's probably a Moksha first into Bakhtiari would have been the call, then into
Mhm.
Magnus. I mean, it's not like I've got Magnus in there, and obviously I got the trade route up, and I've given him Magnus's second promotion to get the better trade routes. But yeah, I hope I end up. Oh God, please don't go over there. Didn't I go chop the? What did I do here? Please tell me I went to chop the campus. No, I went to get the production in Bakhtiari. God damn it! I think that's a mistake, right? I mean,
I
at
mean,
this point,
I
the
think
campus should have just been placed.
the campus should have just been placed at this point. I think like there's been so many things going through Parsagate, like what however you pronounce that.
Yeah, yeah,
And like a builder should have been one of them because then it would have just chopped out one of the things you had been building in there,
yeah.
right? Like
I did the extra warrior was a mistake. Like I could have really helped myself with tempo here. I put in and then oh my god, why did I put a Gogi in? I think it's because I think I put a Gogi in thinking that I was going to um I was finishing a warrior, but then I had finished the warrior. That was just a brain fart. But I put in horseback riding because I at this point I think I decided I was going to chop out
horses and kill
horses
buenos.
and kill buenas. Yeah,
Yeah.
but even here I'm 2 turns political philosophy. Do I go straight to the horse? I think I do. Yeah, okay, so that was a good call. But I should have the horse.
Still, like I think a builder here, like
A
you get a builder
builder,
there,
man.
and then
Jesus.
and you could still build that horse, and then you can chop another horse, and then you can chop another horse, and
Yeah.
then you've got your horses to kill buenos, and you've got your campus spot, and you're not wasting any chops. Like
Yeah.
yeah, it is. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like you look back and you're like, wow, this builder would have been so good. Like
Yeah. And knowing what I know now about City Patron is I had the encampment placed, but it probably wasn't a huge rush to finish it. I easily could have thrown the commercial down on the maze here and taken advantage of that 50% production.
maybe even now you just put the +4 campus in the second city, and then you put the campus next to the city center there. I don't know if that's what you end up.
No, I think I put the what did I do here? Pretty sure I went commercial hub on the maze, and then I put the campus I think to the left of it on the hill. In order to, because my thought was that I could fill the desert up with out of my next city left, I fill that up with districts around the Gov Plaza, and then the campus ends up being a 3 because it has 4 districts in the Gov Plaza. I think is what I did. But yeah, like even here, like I'm doing the barracks, and I mean, if anything, I should have built the stables, but I'm not. I didn't even.
Barracks early is fine. Like
Yeah,
it's for building. Like the extra XP is like it definitely is better later if you have the like. I go barracks a lot in the early game. I even go
yeah.
barracks a lot later just to get to the armory, the military academy quicker, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like not necessarily the best move, but it does save you production in like, and you're losing out on that extra XP. So, but,
Yeah, like late game when I'm going like because my what I end up doing here is I end up going 7 cities, commercial hubs, campuses into encampments, and then all the way to military academies through stables, and then at that point they CC, but I end up playing on for a while, and just to kind of see my timings, and my timings weren't bad, for big tank push, so I think that Noob and I kill him if the game goes on because he hits him from the left, I hit him from the right. Pretty easily, I think. I wanted to kind of jump forward a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I was gonna say like we can just move around a couple things as
Yeah. We've gone through like all the opening mistakes I made. So I finally got a builder coming. Oh my god, the chop's happening. The campus is coming. So I actually end up chopping 2 campuses here. I chop out a builder. I think I went builder. I think I bought a builder in order to run it over and chop out the campus. So I'm ready to chop the 2 campuses finally. I definitely. The funny thing is I am fully aware of the incredible value of builders. When I get to feudalism, I'm literally building builders in every city leading up to feudalism popping, so I can put the card in and get like 5 charge builders in every city as quick as possible. And then I usually pump out like 10 of them. So I use this chop into Magnus, obviously, and then switch this to tile over for the settler. So I'm chopping out. I chop out settler and audience. Here I put the campus down on the reef just for I didn't know what else to do there. There was no good commercial hub.
Just have like a little small point just to make about the chop is that I think it should have been gone to your audience and then overflowed into the settler, like queue them up, because right you get like you like get the immediate benefit out of audience right then, and chops it doesn't matter what you chop into as long as you're using a card, if that makes sense, right? Because
yeah, you still get the carryover, yeah,
but also because like during those turns, the more turns you have like a card on affecting production with like 50%, is more turns your city has like enhanced production normally.
Yeah.
But that chop sort of like accelerates that amount, but it also accelerates the chop. So you end up, even if you're chopping something like an audience chamber that doesn't have a card for it, because I assume that's why you changed over to that, is because like you get like the extra chop value.
Yeah, I chopped the settler. Well, what happened is I had 2 chops. I should have just. My thought was after I did it is I should have done both chops into the settler, and then did audience without chops because
that's fine too.
Because you're just getting more out of the chop by chopping it fully in value.
You actually
settler, right?
don't. No, you don't. That's like one of the biggest misconceptions. I like even among like sort of higher level players is that you have to chop into things that have cards, which is what I was trying. I don't know if I was.
So like, yeah, but I was on the settler and I chopped with the settler card on, so I get 50% more production on this chop into Magnus, right?
Yeah, well, let me just try to like walk through like sort of like an explanation. Maybe it'll make a little bit more sense as to like why it doesn't matter what you chop into.
Okay.
So, like I don't know, let's say like audience is like 90 production or something, and I don't know, like a chop is like with Magnus is something like 30. I don't know. I'm just making up numbers, right?
Yeah.
But the settler is like I don't know. Let's just say it's like 90 production as well, and you have the 50% card in. So the chop with the card, like if you do 2 chops, you'd get the settler, right? Because that would be like 2 things that get you straight into that 45.
Yeah.
And then you're working on audience chamber, and if you have like I don't know, like 10 production base, it's like another like 9 turns. So then let's just say you do an audience chamber chop.
Okay.
You do 2 into that, so that takes you 3 turns instead of 9, because you've got the 60 production of the chops, and then you have a 50% production towards your settler. Yeah. So then you have 15 production a turn, and so that's going to take you another 6 turns. So then you end up at 9 turns as well. So regardless of what you're chopping, as long as you're always using a card for anything that has the possibility for a card, you're not losing production. I don't know if I...
Yeah, I think I know what you're saying. I just moved that side to the wrong spot. Or yeah, I did. I think I did.
Right. So it's all about like what requires like priority.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, okay, I need to use a chop for this because there's a card for it.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
I mean, it's not like terrible to be like, I want this settler like faster, like, and then I'll like do the audience chamber at the end. It's just like small, tiny little things.
Yeah. So anyway, we got the horses over here, and Waza came with a couple horses. This is a 1-turn takedown of Buenos Aires, which was really clean. He had actually just thrown down Pudioli, so it was nice to get, with his limited military, it was nice to put some pressure on him here with some horses, not only to take Buenos Aires and solidify this area, but also to put pressure on him. He ended up upgrading a bunch of legions and stuff and producing a bunch of units, which had good value. So Buenos Aires gets taken. You can see we push here. He upgraded that legion because of it. I stepped on his encampment here with my horsey, and I stood there for I think 5 or 6 turns. And then eventually he kind of pushed me off. I didn't want to lose any units. So I end up settling this. I end up surrounding this with districts. I was wrong. I actually put the commercial hub on the hill. What did I end up doing there? And then and then I put the campus. Okay, yeah, that's what I did. And then I put the campus. I actually should have done that the other way, I think. I should have put the commercial hub on the maze and the campus on the hill, and I think the campus would end up being a 3 there. I screwed that up. Anyway, moving forward. I get a little bit of a push with legions here, and I just lock them up. It's no problem. It's basically just a stalemate. I get 1 turned on freaking Great Bath. I was so upset about it too. It's gonna be a really good one because that thing flooded like 3 or 4 times. It's gonna be a bunch of faith. You never know, like by a great person later or something.
Yeah, I think at this point it's like sort of it's just like you're stalemated, right? Because you haven't been able to like pressure him early enough to sort of like break through a lead. You sort of decided to like handshake on simming.
Exactly.
So therefore, like now he's in a like position where it's like he has enough production where if you attack him, he can probably like come back with like basically the same stuff, and you guys are just gonna keep stalemating.
Yeah.
But yeah, like my like the reason I just like sort of like harping on this a little bit is because then like say like Noob comes in, he's got like pretty good stats right now. If both of you guys are at like 20 science, 20 culture or something, he comes in, you're very safe in this little corner.
Yeah.
You sort of like push him out, you keep pressuring him with a ton of units on one side. Noob comes in with like, I don't know, Cuirassier, Bombard kind of shit.
Yeah.
Really good stuff. Like yeah, it works out where he can't really deal with that anymore, right? He's putting all his production into units towards you, and he can fight you, but he can't fight like something that's like 2 arrows up or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because at this point I'm just like sim, and like I'm like, other than I think Civ Rider and Noob, I've got the top stats in the room, and I guess Sandro is around the same. So I feel like, given my shit land, and you know, I knew I had made mistakes, but I got settled down. I felt like I was having a pretty good game, and I felt like I was going to be able to out-sim him. And it ends up being the case. He ends up being a little bit ahead of science at the end because he had more cities and better campuses. But I went straight into universities and had enough science to get the tanks fast. So yeah, it was an interesting game. So in your situation, if you would have been playing this, would you have? Tell me a little bit about what you would have done. You're talking about being a bit more aggressive, maybe taking those units to settle further south.
I think at the very least, like I might have even done something where I just go like straight horses, go like a Temple of Artemis or something. And that if I'm going to do like the same setup as what you have right now, where you went like you went on the coast without like the 1/4 deer, because one of my things early was like just go on that tile and reap the benefits quickly. But then you could go for like a temple or something on, I don't know, maybe temple is kind of weird, but I do like early horse rush plays in like these sort of cornered situations. So I think I would have done that, like maybe even the same kind of city setup you had, but then just like go straight into like 5-6 horses.
Okay.
Get onto him. If I can raise one city, then he's like sort of crippled at that point.
Yeah.
And then now I have a large standing army. I can just sort of like go around his entire borders and just like keep harassing him constantly, try and make him less relevant while, and during that time I don't even need to like build units. I can just keep summing and I can.
Mm-hmm. I should have switched to Classic Republic there. I was
Classical Republic is also just like amazing.
I know. I went to Oligarchy just for the card because I knew I was gonna. I just in case I needed it early, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I think was the call, right? Like you want the
That makes sense.
You want the Oligarchy card here, right? But
Uh-huh.
I should have just at this point once I had the card, I should have just went Classic Republic, and that was government changeouts is just a bit of a mistake there. But yeah, I don't know. Be interesting. So then I moved through. Oh, we had to relobby there. Okay. This I'm taking a look around again. This is very much a stalemate, but continuing to get things going. I think I get into my second golden and he misses, which is key. Getting my populations up. Like to me, this is such a comfort zone for me. Like you talk about being aggressive and getting some horses and going like maybe you can raise a city, you just harass him, things like that. But I'm constantly of the thought in my brain where if I can just get to a point where I can sim, like just I got my units up, I have my horses and some immortals and stuff, and I was just like, if he comes at me, I can definitely handle him, and probably even more units than I needed, honestly, being a little bit cautious. Noob totally abusing Samaria again, Southrex. He totally abused Samaria on free sim and just was destroying in this game. He ends up with 6 stats and pushes 2 people at once, and that's why they CC. So anyway, I just feel like okay, I've got enough units that he doesn't want to push me, and then I'll just sim. And if I could just sim, I'll be fine. And like I said, like okay, campuses are down, libraries, universities, good to go. I've got my stats. I can put together a military. So I push through here. Let me push through a bunch more. I'm getting commercial hubs down, getting governors in. I end up getting governors in here to get my populations up quicker, which ended up helping me a lot in these cities. The extra food and housing and that really helped me get to my 7 pop for all my districts in a good timing. Hey, Stroke. Good to see you.
I think one of the things though is that it's not that stats win games, it's armies, right? So if you have stats and you're just kind of like sitting around, not really applying pressure, then it's not really doing much. Like right now you're at 17 gold per turn, which is like you're not that's like self-sufficient gold.
Yeah.
And sort of like sustain yourself for like general like things like I need a tile or whatever. But it's not like anything where it's like, oh, I'm gonna be able to fund like another player and put pressure that way. You're not really boosting any of the trees. You're just sort of like sitting there passively, like not dying, which can be good. Like when you're sort of starting off to just not die.
Yeah.
Don't be like that person that's like, oh well, I guess we CC'd because that person just doesn't know how to defend, kind of thing. But that's why I'm more like pushing for like an aggressive play style on this spawn, because like you have everything set up right now and it's like 100 science, 82 culture, and that's pretty much like close to your limit, right?
Yeah.
You can't get to a point where you're just like overwhelmingly like out simming someone to the point where you can kill them with that.
Yeah.
But you also don't have like the military might right now to ever pressure.
Yeah.
And it takes too long at this point to then like get that up. So
yeah, my thought is here, and I've used it in the past, is like he is kind of keeping up to me, so it would definitely be a tough push. But if I feel like if I keep my stats around equal, then I can outsim the tanks. Like I'll get a military encampment in every district or in every city, and I'll just produce a shit ton of pre-builds and upgrade to tanks, and just like overwhelm him. That's kind of my thought. Maybe it doesn't work. I feel like in this situation, I don't know if there's a whole lot more I could have done.
I mean, I would agree that this is like a really hard spawn to play.
Yeah. Like you feel like you would have
I would not be able to carry this spawn like reliably.
Yeah.
This is clearly like really really bad. Uh, but I think that the highest probability of you having an impact in the game is by aggression.
Aggression early.
Is the yeah because this is sort of like how the sim turned out. If you would say like you've got 7 cities, Tarsus is like completely crap, right? So like that, I don't even know if that's a city, but it's something.
Well, yeah,
Like, okay.
it's. I mean, it is pretty.
Agmatana as well. Like
It's pretty crap, but it's they end up getting like first of all, there's enough like there's hills. My thought was is there was 2 plains hills to the left. There was food. There was 2, 3. I could grab like there's going to be able to grab 6 or 7 tiles, build a commercial hub and like a good commercial hub and a +4 campus, right? So my thought is commercial hub and campus, +4, +4. Not great cities, but they'll get it done. I end up throwing an encampment down in this city as well and getting things done. But
I don't want to like have it be misconstrued that you like probably shouldn't settle that city, but more like right, your 3 cities that can actually like build things later on are going to be Tushpa, Bakhtri, and Parsagade.
yeah, I
Like
mean,
Buenos is like because it's a city state. Obviously, it's like sort of behind on district production. The tiles around it aren't too great. Like it's a fine city, and then it's also non-fresh. And then
yeah,
Hagmatana could like chop out some districts and be useful in that situation. Like
yeah. I end
here,
up eventually creating room to chop out and get a little bit done. But I'm gonna move forward here. I think I end up.
just after the game ends, you're
Yeah,
looking around at it.
yeah, and I ended up at some point here. I play about I don't know 15 turns or something like that. I get my universities built. I start building my um my encampments and and getting to the eventual play. Isolationism. I end up having some disgusting trade routes in all my cities, and I ended up getting like 200 science, and I got refining here, and like these cities, I kind of get them going. Like I mean, you can see I'm kind of creating mines and protecting this chokes, and I've my idea was you can see here actually is I got my engineers out and I'm building roads to the right, and in my head I'm thinking I'm gonna hit him on the right, a noob's gonna hit him on the left. We're gonna squeeze him with tanks, and there's nothing you can do about it. And that's kind of where my thought process was on having an impact on the game if it had continued to go. Is my cities aren't great, but I feel like I can play better than him, and get a dozen tanks in a general. That's kind of where my thought process was from the beginning of the game. Your thought is get a bunch of horses, try to take a city, keep pressure on him, and irrelevant from the game early.
I mean, even if you don't like, so like the 6 horse idea is like something like, especially with Magnus, you could try and go for because you can get those 6 horses out really fast. Like that could be like a builder chops a horse, a horse, a horse. You're building a horse at the same time. Bakhtri is building a horse, and then you get all those horses kind of flooding down on him. And that amount of production, like he's not going to be able to quickly do that in the early game unless he also chops. So then those chops, like if he has the availability to do it, if you're hitting like an outside like city, you'd maybe do like a kind of a flank where he's not going to be as well defended. So like I think you can get a lot of value out of that. Then that also sort of solves like your early military issue. Like I have military that is pressuring at some point, and he's the only one next to you as well.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's going to then counterattack with like a bunch of units because he's have to also, you could see his military. He's going to have to do something to then answer you.
Yeah.
And I think that just pans out a little bit better because your start is just too slow to then really be able to get into a spot where you have a big enough advantage to kill him off or do something. Because I think even at this point, I think he could have probably defended like tanks from 2 people. He just gets like steel, he gets his own tanks, then it becomes like sort of just a really slow grind on someone who's pretty like not, it's not like he's gonna carry the game or something, but
yeah, I mean maybe I guess in my head was with the spawn is you're not gonna, like you said, you're not gonna carry. You're not probably gonna kill anybody. So I guess I've learned a lot from like little things early on that we talked about. Um, a few fine tuning things with stuff. Like I feel like my districting ended up pretty good.
Yeah,
And
it's not too bad. Like you also did go for the campus that I was talking about there next to the Gov Plaza, or
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's definitely like you played the spawn fine. It's like you didn't die, you weren't just like completely irrelevant. You definitely had like good science,
Mm-hmm.
but it was sort of at the cost of having like no pressure available until like much later, which is it's definitely an opportunity if you think you're much better at fighting in the modern era.
Mm-hmm.
I think that just goes
That's
like player to
definitely,
player, right?
yeah. That I'm definitely like I feel like I'm probably along the lines of terrible at this point when it comes to anything other than modern. Like I feel like my advantage is outsim people to tanks, and then I can beat them up because I just have such lacking experience compared to most people with like classical type warfare or industrial pushes. I see people do industrial pushes, and it just gives me uh you know it gives me anxiety. Like coordinating like the engineer to push the bombards forward, and then like angling the cuirassiers in the right spots, and like I don't know, it's just tough. I don't know. I need to just get better at it. I just need to force myself to do it, I guess. But um I don't know. This build feels good to me, especially with Persia, and so I feel like I can do it well. And yeah, and then I ended up with 28,000 gold in this game because AI stuff. Um, that was a lot of fun. So there you go. Overall, your impressions of the gameplay, to kind of wrap that up. Like the biggest suggestions that you would see. I guess we've kind of talked a few times about it, but
So I think biggest suggestion is to be like a little bit more confident in doing some early aggression and trying that out. Especially when you get spawns where you're trapped in or the land is not looking good.
mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, because you want to, if you don't have the lint to like clearly outsim because it's better than the other person, then you want to try and like pressure that person so they can't get as large a lead.
Yeah,
And then while you're pressuring them, then you can like start your own sim. That's
yeah,
like sort of like the main takeaway. Because sort of the goal in teamers is you want to have that you want to be able to have some impact on the game, whether
yeah,
that's gold, whether that's um, like a military pressure.
yeah,
Sort of like sitting back and having the stats only really helps if like you're also like boosting other people,
mm-hmm.
right? So it's like a team effort to try and like get together towards a win condition rather than like, okay, my sim is like really good. It's like definitely like up there.
Yes,
Kind
yeah. Having a yeah. So I guess my mentality in that game was just stay competitive and not die. I
Yeah, I
suppose
mean it's not a
overall,
bad.
and maybe I get to tanks and we can double team them. Was kind of my halfway through the game. My thought was
Mhm.
when I saw Noob and his positioning. If we hit him with tanks on both sides, I went dark. I was gonna go dark into a heroic. I could get two arms and basically delete steel cities with tank cores was my kind of idea, right? And
Yeah, it's just you also have to like sort of have the idea that he's also going to try and do like something similar
mm-hmm. Yeah,
because and so then he gets tank core and then tank core versus tank core it's a stalemate.
mm-hmm.
And then it's really just more about like, okay, can I get artillery and then I get balloons, and by that time it's like turn 100 and like the main simmers are probably having decided the game already.
Yeah,
So uh, it's not even like I can really criticize you too much. It's like something doing simming and warring at the same time and having being able to change that mindset like or do both at the same time is really hard. Like
Okay.
that's probably one of the hardest things to teach people, because it's easy to say like, okay, just build military and then like go at that guy, right? Like if all your cities are doing like on the same page of doing something, it's really easy to like know what's the right amount to do. Same with like free sim. Like it's like, okay, I don't need military. I can
Yeah.
build like builders and then districts, and I get out my commercial hubs and I get my like whatever other thing. Like if I'm doing culture victory, get some theaters out.
Yeah.
Um,
Build some
but
wonders.
then that point where it's like, I need to stay relevant, but I also need to make sure this guy like is also being pressured, so he has to do something.
Hmm.
Because much better to be the person making someone else react than having to react yourself or just being inactive.
Yeah. So seeing like for instance my capital there had quite a lot of chops. Magnus is a good call on Persia unless you're going like say Bengala internals, but um just like you said, find a way to get really efficient military and then make him match you well, and then like because like you said, if I chop out and just go like 6 horses really fast out of my capital and pressure him hard, once those horses are out, that the military side job's kind of done, and then you're free to do whatever you else you want, kind of thing, right? Like, is that kind of your thought? Is time quick horses and put the pressure on him, injure him while you're simming, right? Is that kind of
Yeah, I mean, you can. The thing is, you don't even have to take a city. Like taking a city would be like, that's like
ultimate?
that's the ultimate prize
Yeah.
is if you can take a city. But if you can do something like you move in all your horses, you can like kill off one of his horses. You can move back, heal up, run in again, like kill a unit, run back.
Yeah. Steal a
That's
builder,
you're
pillage.
yeah, anything like that. Like as long as you're not losing too much, like the
Yeah.
moment you start like trading heavily and it's like one horse for one horse, then that's like bad, right?
Yeah,
Because you're
exactly.
both lose. Like if you're thinking about like how much production each of you has to put in, you're basically deleting production when you kill a unit.
Yeah.
So because he's gonna have to like rebuild another unit to try and like cover that problem.
Yeah, so get efficient trades. Get efficient units by chopping Magnus with the card in, maneuver card, and just get efficient army and then be done with that side of it versus slowly like, okay, I got a couple horses here and then I guess I'll build a horse from every city right now and then I'll and it kind of slows down everything for like 5-10 turns to put the military together versus just bang bang bang, get it done. Magnus chops, you're out the door, and then okay, put my districts back up, get the builders going again, and reinitiate because it makes sense to me in my head. I guess it just this the intimidation factor of doing it, I suppose, and the fear of failure, and then getting counterattacked, and I guess I was just comfortable with the fact that when I saw that he wasn't going to push me, I'm like, okay, I'll just sit here and do my thing as well, and have no impact on the game whatsoever. But sometimes having no impact on the game is better than having a negative impact on the game, right? So, all right, all right. I'm gonna wrap up that episode. Tordread, just give me a second. I'm gonna say goodbye. Twitch, thanks for being here. YouTube, that is lesson number 1 from Tordread. We'll see you next time. Bye bye.